I, 51F, have a younger half-sister, 35, who was born from my dad's second marriage. My parents divorced when I was 12 and afterwards, my dad moved to another state. I visited for major holidays and 6 weeks during the summer. I was almost 16 when she was born and I remember celebrating her baptism, her first Christmas, first birthday, etc., but by the time she was a teen I was in my 20s and living the city life all on my own and my visits were rare. My dad had also gotten divorced from her mother when she was 12, coincidentally the same age I was when my own parents got divorced. At that point I only visited once or twice a year, if that. During one of those visits my dad told me that my sister had been pregnant and he'd sent her to South America to have the baby and it was put up for adoption. He went on to say that by the time she realized she was pregnant, she had broken up with the father, who was 20 when she was 16, I know, and she was left to figure everything out. She was adamant about not wanting the baby, but she didn't want to terminate the pregnancy either, so the adoption was arranged. She had a son. He was visibly emotional but believed it was the best decision at that time. I was stunned. I hadn't really seen her much during her teenage years. My dad's divorce from her mother was acrimonious, so that, coupled with the age difference, didn't leave much room for bonding. Over the years we've spoken very little. She's met my children a few times over the years but they don't really know each other. A few weeks ago I received a letter from an attorney. It laid out how I was identified as a relative of the person they were representing. I immediately remembered what my father had told me and everything clicked. I was asked if I would be comfortable with answering a few questions regarding my dad's side of the family. Before responding I got in touch with my sister. She made it clear that I should ignore the letter and act as if I had never received it. Her son is now 19 years old and actively trying to get in touch with her. She has zero desire to meet him. The conversation left me torn because he's already made progress in finding her. Not wanting to acknowledge the situation won't stop what's been set in motion. After this conversation I sent the letter back declining to answer on paper, but wrote a note on the form that I would prefer to be contacted by phone. The law firm got in touch with me shortly afterwards. I just acknowledged what they already knew. Who our mutual father was. Who our grandparents in South America were, etc. Basically it was confirmation of the family tree. Nothing that was a big reveal. My sister called me this past weekend livid. She told me I had no right to butt into her past and I should have just respected her feelings. Now she is claiming that her husband of 8 years is finding out about this and it could ruin her marriage. Our dad has since passed away and I can't imagine how terrible he would feel knowing that all of this is transpiring and how ugly things have become. Comment 1. NTA. While her giving the child up for adoption was absolutely the most reasonable and best option, she also relinquished any rights she or her family had over him and the situation. Quite frankly, this is something she should have been honest about with her husband well before 8 years into the marriage. Comment 2. Your sister needs to get a grip. First of all, you didn't butt into her past. Her past and their lawyer came after you, thus involving you by no fault of your own. Secondly, her marriage problems are not on you. You didn't tell her husband, it is not your fault she never said anything in 8 damn years and if the kid is actively trying to get in contact sooner or later he would have found out either way. Lastly, what is there to bitch about, really? You didn't disclose anything they didn't already know, they already know who she is and how to contact her. I presume you didn't tell them a detailed account of her life story seeing as you barely know your sister. You're not trying to foster a relationship with this kid and bring him into the family. What you did was about as personal as answering a public survey. NTA. Comment 3. As someone adopted, I'm curious about what you said about her going to another country to put her child up for adoption. I wonder about the legal citizenship status for that child. Neither of his birth parents were a resident of that country, but he was born there and adopted there? I would believe he might still have rights to assert citizenship in his birth parents' country. Interesting legal question and maybe part of this story.
I, 48M, have a daughter Lisa, 15F, from my first marriage. I'm not on particularly good terms with her mother, and Lisa unfortunately became an outlet for her resentment towards me, which ended up souring our relationship massively. Lisa is a good person, but unfortunately she takes after her mom in terms of demeanor and often acts rude and entitled. A few years ago, I married again. Lisa decided to not attend my wedding, and she said a bunch of hurtful things to my then-fiancée Rosemary, 38F. Since then, our relationship got even worse. When Rosemary and I welcomed our son a year and a half ago, Lisa sent me a text saying that since I have my perfect baby now, I could stop pestering her and trying to play family with her. It hurt me deeply, and I ended up distancing myself from her, though I kept sending her $100 a month as her allowance. Recently, we had an unplanned addition to our family. Long story short, Rosemary's sister, who wasn't a good parent to start with, terminated her custody rights over her son Blake, 17M. Rosemary and I decided to take Blake in. Unfortunately, a few years ago, Blake got in a horrible car wreck that left him permanently disabled. Luckily, he can somewhat walk and doesn't need 24/7 assistance around the house, but that's about it. Blake is an amazing person, and he quickly became a part of our family. I decided to give the $100 allowance to Blake instead. He was beyond happy and grateful. I also made a hard decision and gave him my car. It's a 22 Cadillac Escalade, and I was planning on getting rid of it this year anyway since Lisa is turning 16 in a month, and I wanted to gift it to Lisa. Now it's Blake's car, and he absolutely loves it. He really needed a car because his mobility issues don't let him get around easily anymore, and it changed his life massively. Of course, Lisa didn't like it. When she realized that she wasn't getting any allowance, she called me and asked what's wrong. It was the first call I received from her in a year, if not more. I explained that now when my family had expanded, I'm not having enough money. I'll be still sending her mom the child support payments as per court agreement, but she shouldn't expect anything extra. She asked me about the car since she knew about my plans on giving her a car. I told her that now the situation changed and I no longer could give her a car. I'll admit, what I said next was probably a holish of me, since I told her that I now have 2 children to play family with and asked her to stop pestering me. This caused her to blow up completely to the point she got her mom to call me and scream at me, and so did her new husband. They threatened to sue me. Lisa said she'll go no contact and so on. I just brushed off the threats, especially since Rosemary is a lawyer and I made my peace with poor contact with Lisa years ago. They also managed to write a few mean things to Rosemary and Blake, and this is what got me wondering whether I was in a hole here.
Comment 1. YTA, you're the adult, and haven't acted like it for basically her entire life. She was, what, 10, 11, 12? When you divorced? She takes after her mom, aka I did absolutely no parenting and am shocked she acts like the parent who actually raised her. You distanced yourself BC, a child said something mean. Seriously? Will you do the same when your son does the same? Cause guess what? No teen has an always positive relationship with their parents. More than likely, your kid will say 1 they hate you, 2 you're ruining their life, 3 they didn't choose to be born or something similar. So you just gonna dip when he gets to that stage? Comment 2. YTA for how you handled it. It's fine to not give her a car. Stooping to her teenage level and throwing her teenage words back at her is not fine. You're the adult, you're the parent. Your job was to understand that the divorce and you remarrying was tough on her, and to be a good dad. That means being there, being open and loving, even when she's angry or doesn't want to see you. You keep the door open and let her know it's always open, because she's your kid and you love her. You didn't do that. Comment 3. Not really fine to give the car away to someone else when he promised it to her. Yes, parents don't owe their kids cars, but they do need to keep their word and not go out of their way to find ways to hurt their child. My nephew George lives with me and my family. He is my sister's child, but she unfortunately passed away a few years ago. Her widower, Eric, remarried quickly. George didn't get on with Eric's wife and kids, and Eric paid no attention to him. 18 months ago he came to live with me. Eric visits George at our house for 1 weekend a month, a longer visit during the summer, and we took him to see Eric at Christmas time. All of these visits are without his wife and her children, as the therapist feels it's important for George and Eric to rebuild their individual relationship. I won't say facilitating this has been easy. I love George like he's my own child, and to watch Eric flounder with a child he was supposed to take care of breaks my heart. It's hard for my husband too. All this to say, we are on a short fuse with Eric. I feel I have to be honest about that. Anyway, Eric is meant to be coming to us in August for 2 weeks. A few days ago, he asked if he could bring his wife and her kids. Apparently she has been having a really tough time and is desperate for a holiday, as are the kids. WTF. Eric also said it's been a real strain to keep his wife and kids away from his son, and splitting time has been hard, and he really wants to start mending the relationship between all of them. I was livid, but I went and spoke to my husband, and then to George. George was hurt that his dad was suggesting bringing them, and said that he didn't want to see them. I went back to Eric and said I couldn't control where his wife and the kids are, but they won't be staying with us. If he wants to bring them, they can stay in a hotel, and when he is not visiting George he can do what he wants. I made clear that I am upholding what's been recommended by the therapist George sees, which Eric knows because he has check-ins with the therapist. Both Eric and his wife have been up my ass about me not letting them stay. I have not blocked her because I like to collect evidence of what kind of person she is to send to Eric when he tries to act like she is not awful. Eric is saying he might not be able to come at all now because organizing childcare for the kids is going to be hard, and his wife is becoming resentful of him not being around, etc. Basically, because I'm doing this, George might not see Eric at all for more than a weekend until Christmas. This is hurting me because Eric has been making a good effort until now. And George had been starting to trust him. I just feel like I'm ruining it. But if I let them all stay, then Eric won't get any one-on-one time with George anyway. The wife will make sure of that, on top of us all having hellish house guests. I am trying to enforce this boundary so that Eric has to man up and prioritize his son, but maybe I'm being too harsh because it might end up the opposite. Comment 1. NTA. They want to come because they are desperate for a holiday. They want you to provide a free vacation. And being on holiday would mean they will expect to be waited on, cleaned up after, and entertained. Nope, you are not running a bed and breakfast, much less a free one. I feel for George and that he may miss out on a visit from his dad, but the unfortunate truth is that there is not much of a relationship there to begin with, and it's best George starts to lean that and process it, with the help of his therapist. Comment 2. NTA. Let me guess you live in a place that people enjoy vacationing at? And his wife wants a free vacay. Odds are even if you said yes to hosting they would expect free meals, transportation, and activities lined up by you. Ask why he only wants to see his kid less than a month out of the year. Also ask about the above. Will they be paying for groceries? Get a rental car, or will they have other activities planned while George and his dad do things separately? Also let them know if they come up and stay somewhere else you will not be hosting them. If wifey wants to go shopping she will be doing it with her kids, you will not be watching their kids, nor will you be organizing group outings for George and his step-siblings. OP comment. Of course we do. And rates in the summer are ridiculously high and there's no chance Eric could afford a trip for the wife and kids there otherwise. I am absolutely hip to what she's trying to do. Eric probably is too and is just trying to find a way to appease her so he still gets to come. My daughter Jasmine recently got engaged and it was a beautiful day, but unfortunately I feel like some behavior from my stepdaughter Holly's husband Jack overshadowed the day. I've never been overly fond of Jack, but I keep that to myself. My husband likes him well enough as he is relieved Holly found someone. She does not warm up to many people. The issue came up when Holly called her father and said she was briefly in town. Of course my husband wanted to see her, but we already had plans with Jasmine's boyfriend Liam to host a get-together/surprise engagement party. He invited Holly to join us and I was a bit anxious as Liam hadn't included her on the initial guest list and doesn't like her very much, but I get my husband wanted to see her. Jasmine walked into the surprise party blindfolded and found all of her loved ones gathered and a heart of rose petals on the floor. She immediately burst into tears and Liam got down on his knee. I heard Jack say to Holly, "Oh my God, what would you have done if I proposed to you like this?" I felt annoyed but continued to watch the proposal. Liam began listing all of the reasons he loved Jasmine and Jack announced to my husband, "Holly is cringing. I can physically feel it." At this point I gave him a look. Jasmine and Liam shared a slow dance and it was beautiful. Jack appeared to be trying not to laugh and I was furious. After the dance everyone began to socialize and Jack said to my husband, "Someday I'm going to prank Holly. I'm going to recreate the proposal and watch her die inside." I lost it and told him to get out. They tried to brush it off, but I said I was serious. No one needs his negativity and I don't want him to come back for a long time until I feel ready to see him again. My husband is angry and thinks I'm being irrational. I'm serious. I am so disgusted by him. Comment 1. NTA Jack was deliberately trying to cause drama at your daughter's engagement party literally during the proposal. He's a compete hole and I wouldn't want him around either. Tell your husband he can see them all he wants, but should make arrangements to do it somewhere else. Comment 2. People are allowed to be different in that which appeals to them. They are also allowed to find humor in life. What they aren't allowed to do is loudly interrupt someone else's special moment by being a loud and obnoxious J so everyone can hear just how rude they are.